Hello again, this is one of a series of videos accompanying the Joomla tutorial developing an MVC component, and it's the second video on this step, adding a front-end form. Now in the first video we covered kind of like the general approach, so in this video I'm going to cover off all these little bits and pieces down below here. And the first is JURI, so if you put JURI into Google and your version of Joomla, you'll find a page like this, and this is all to do with the URL. So it's the Joomla class that kind of supports functionality associated with URLs. Now we have actually seen this before in our view, for example, of our edit form for Hello World within the admin functionality. Down the bottom there's this function here for JURI root, and it's really just a pointer to the top level directory, and then we can add on bits and pieces to the subdirectory to specify that we want to, say, include a certain file as a script file, to have a script file in this case. And if you go here, you can see root returns the root URI for the request. It's really just pointing to the top level directory. In our code, if we go down to our controller here, we're using it here. JURI get instance, and if we do that, and then the string cast will result in this toString method being called in that object, and that will just give us basically the string representation of the URL, which is really just what we want for that redirect request there. We're just saying redirect us back to the same URL that we're on at the moment. So you can have a wee look at the various methods that are there, but I just wanted to highlight a little issue, because if, for example, you want to, say, look at current, for example, current returns the URL for the request minus the query. So the query is started by the question mark. So if you're, say, on Hello World, and I've just clicked on Hello World, so it's displaying this message here. So if you were to call JURI current, you would get this, because as you can see, there's no query in that, there's no question mark. However, if you go across to where are we? I want to go, that was where I wanted to be. If we go to our global configuration and we go to SEO settings and we switch SEF URLs, search engine friendly URLs, off, and go back to save. And then we go back here and we'll click on Hello World. Do this a couple of times just to get it into the right format. But as you can see up there, the URL has actually changed. So now we do have a question mark and we do have a query. So running JURI current in this case is just going to give us the front end bit of that, this bit here, and we're not going to get that bit there. So that's just something to be aware of. Changing this setting here on the admin can drastically change what you're actually getting on these as a result of calling these functions like current. So if you are relying on it being a certain thing, you have to make sure that admins don't go in and change this thing here. I'll just so you're going back. So if we click on Hello World here, after a couple of times, we'll get back to search engine friendly format, which, as you can see, doesn't have any question marks. So that's just something to be aware of. Now, what's the next thing? Jmailer. So we've used this in our controller down below to send a mail to the user that's designated in the global config. And really, sending mail is fairly straightforward. We've just got this call to actually get a handle on the mailer object. So if we go into, I think it's JFactory, get mailer, and this will return our Jmail object. And this is the set of functions. Get instance will just static function will do the same sort of thing there as well. But as you can see, it's the standard sort of things that you would expect from a mail sort of function. You can add recipients, CC lists, blind copy lists, bodies, attachment, all that sort of stuff. And then when you're finished, you can call send, and that sends the email. Or you can put it all into one and just call send mail and pass all the stuff as parameters. So all of that is fairly straightforward. It does say in the API where it's got send there at if it doesn't work, sending the message fails, it generates an exception, which is why this code is here, to catch that exception. Although I have tried to set things up so that it does fail, and it doesn't seem to raise that exception. But it does bring me on to the next thing, which is Jlog add, which I'm going to talk about in a little minute. The only other thing I want to say about mail was that you need to set up your mail settings, and this is how I set mine up, and it's just really using my Gmail account. I've just changed it to be example@gmail.com, but you can find these settings online, and as it says in the tutorial, you just have to make sure that you on Gmail you allow less secure apps on the Gmail account, because it's really logging in remotely and trying to send a message through Gmail rather than going to Gmail web application there. Okay, so that's mailer. The next thing on the list is Jlog add, and this is really quite a useful little function, because Jlog add enables you to log messages, and they're actually put into the admin area, administrator logs. And if you look at here, you can see various log files. They're just written as PHP files, and I think the main reason they're written as PHP files is because of this line here. And it does mean if anyone is trying to access them, they'll come across that line there, and the process will die. And you can see various bits of errors that have been logged through this. Obviously, some problems are getting logged in this file associated with emails. So Jlog add, you can add a text field, you can add a kind of like severity level. If you put a category of J error, it does mean that it will be output to the screen as well, in the same way as enqueue message. And you can find a lot more about Jlog on this page here. There's a debug plugin which kind of controls the setting of Jlog add and what it will do, and you can turn messages being logged on or off. There is actually quite a useful feature in that you can set up debug messages in your code, and if you do that, it does enable you to troubleshoot live problems on your site, because the debug can be set to on, and it can then start to display messages, and it can display messages down in this bit here in the debug console. But the nice thing about it is it can control the user groups for which messages are displayed. So if you belong to, for example, a developer user group on the live system, you can come along, you can run your code and see the debug messages that you've put out, but everyone else is unaffected. So it's worth it having a wee look through that page, which gives you a good description of that. Jlog. Okay, the next thing is capture. So people are obviously divided about the usefulness of capture. Some people think they're great for stopping spam. Some people think they don't stop it at all. But if you're interested in putting one on your site, then that is fairly straightforward to do. What you do need to do is set up a plugin to handle the capture. And Joomla comes shipped with the Google capture reCAPTCHA. You know, that's the one where you have to click on a wee circle saying I'm not a robot, and if it's a bit unsure, then it will show you pictures of things like road signs and that, and ask you to click on those panels which have either road signs or shop fronts or something like that. And if you click on this, if you go into plugins and then edit this, it will actually explain what you have to do. So you have to go to Google, log your domain, and then you'll get a couple of keys. So if you go in and log localhost as your domain, as I did, then you can get this working, and you just have to configure it by putting in these keys. So that's that. Then that would be live to use. The other thing is I just went and looked for a simple plugin that just available from the Joomla extensions. Came across this one. This one's the first one that caught my eye, just a simple math capture plugin, and I installed it and set it live there. And it's fairly straightforward. It's just got a couple of configuration parameters, whether you want to just use addition or multiplication or complexity, that side of things. And once you've got those plugins or whatever plugin you want to use installed, then there are a couple of configuration parameters. One is the global configuration parameter, which we'll see in a minute. And it's under site. Here it is here. So this will go through the available capture plugins on the system, and we'll let you select one of those. And what we also did in this tutorial step here was include it as one of the configuration parameters here. So here we've got configuration field, which results in this. And I've just set that to the mathematical plugin there. So if we look at this is the configuration parameters. So what we're doing here is the type here is plugins. And we're looking in the capture folder, because when we look online at the live site, we'll find these are put into plugins and capture. So these are the two ones that are live here. So this configuration is really going to go through that folder and look for plugins of type capture and display them to us here. Now once we've got that selected, we've got in our field definition up here for our form. that is our hello world form here for putting in a new hello world message. We have got a field which is of type captcha. And so whenever we build that form, the system comes along and says, well, what is the captcha that is alive? And it will use whatever we've set in the configuration. And the way it will work is, I've kind of drawn it as a bit of a diagram here. Whenever we go on and display this form here, then Joomla, we're asking to display the edit form. The Joomla core will look to see, well, what captcha is actually live, what should we be using, and it will call the onDisplay method of that plugin, and it will expect back a bit of HTML, and that bit of HTML is what generates this here. And the way that this particular plugin works is that it puts in that bit of HTML, but it also puts the answer to this question, what's 52 plus 88, which should hopefully be 140. And it will put 140 into the HTML as well, but it'll hash it, so it'll be shown to be secret. And then when we hit save, it will come back, and you see this validate here. This validate routine will be run whenever we validate the form parameters, and it will result in Joomla calling onCheckAnswer in the plugin. And the plugin then will look to get the form parameters from the input request, as we've done on a number of occasions. So it will get whatever the user has put in this field, and it will also get what it previously put in as a hidden field in hash format. So it will get the user's input there, it will get the what it's put in originally, and it will hash the user's input and compare it with really what it's put in originally, and then return true or false. So that's the outline of how captcha works, and it really follows a similar pattern as to how plugins work on Joomla. They kind of work on a trigger basis. They're triggered and then they send a response back. And if you are interested in following up and looking into plugins in a bit more, this is one course that I found free on the internet. I did this a while ago. It looks as if someone has started to develop a course on Joomla, but it's only got to so far because it's got about writing a plugin and it's got about writing a module. But I did find that quite useful at the some time ago, so you may be interested in that. Okay, where are we? Next, mutations mechanism. So if we go back down again, configuration parameters, we're displaying the new fields in the admin list form. So that is this here. So we're displaying the author and the created fields. And you do find that Joomla changes things from time to time. So one of the things that was changed recently was how they do sorting, and both methods are still supported, but I guess at some point the old method will be deprecated and just the new method will be supported. So really what has been done here is the new method has been included, and really it involves changing the little function that's called here, instead of search tools.sort, instead of grid.sort, I think it was in the past, it's search tools.sort. And in the past there were a couple of fields which were filter order and filter order direction, which were hidden fields in the form, which kind of kept tabs on what was the current column that was being sorted by and whether it was ascending or descending. And in the new scheme of things, that is replaced by this here, so this field here, which is actually explicitly shown on the form here. So you can select which field you want to order by. As you can see, we put the wee arrow beside author. So it's really just a different way of doing sorting, and it's a more modern way, and the old way, I guess, at some point is going to be deprecated. Okay, that's about it, really. Just if you're interested in trying a couple of the add-on sorts of things onto this functionality, there were a couple of things I did, so you may be interested in trying them. And I'll just install the other version that I have first, and then you can see. Okay. So one of the things you could do is put introductory text on the form. So go to global config here and go into hello world. You'll see a couple of different parameters. Introductory text. So what I've done there is just allowed the user to enter, or the administrator to enter something which would be put on as introductory text to this hello world message. So if I click on new hello world, you should see it up there. Oops, introductory text, try it out. And the interesting thing here is it's got HTML here, and that's got through those filters, which I said filtered out HTML. And the reason that it has is that I've used as a filter this safe HTML, which will allow through HTML which is safe. So if I try to put in some JavaScript, and then save that, we'll see that that has actually ripped out the script tags. So it takes out the unsafe HTML and leaves in the just what it says there, the safe HTML, and then that's the sort of thing that can be displayed on the front of the form there. So that's one thing you might want to try out. The other thing is that whenever we do a redirect, we're always redirecting back to the same form, and that might not be the best thing to do. So another thing you might like to try and do is select the menu item that you want to redirect back to. So here it's, for example, it's Goodbye World. So if I go on here and click on cancel, it should go back to Goodbye World, which is this menu item here. So what you're doing is you're selecting a menu item form field type. This is one of your standard form field types. It's the menu item one. And what it will give you whenever you go into the code to get those parameters is it will give you the ID of that menu item. So if you go onto your database and look up menu, it will give you Goodbye World. It will give you that there. So it will give you an ID 417, and from that 417 you then have to work out, well, how do you get to the URL? And if you have a look at this Stack Overflow question, you'll find different ways of actually going from a menu item ID to a URL. That's using various mechanisms such as JURI, you'll see there, JRoot. So that could be quite instructive. So that's about it. Hope you find this useful. Thanks very much for watching. Bye.